This is CNN Breaking News.
Breaking news, we now have the second part of the Charlotte police shooting video to release to you. What I'm going to show you now is about a minute long. It is the perspective from the officer. It is the body camera footage from one of the officers involved in this shooting. It is not, I should say, footage from the officer who fired the shots that killed Keith Scott. That officer, Officer Vincent, was not wearing a body camera at the time. Before I play this video for you, I want to warn you it is disturbing. We also want to let our viewers know that there is no audio for the first 23 seconds of this video. At the end of the video, you will hear Mr. Scott moaning at the end of the tape. It is very difficult to watch. Here it is.
Legacy part. Gripping his hand. Gripping his hand.
Back up. I got right gun. Back up. Back up.
You on? Huh? I don't know. Hey, somebody get my bag and start getting some equipment.
Where's your bag? You good?
Just take it back to my trunk.
You good?
I'm good. Get some gloves. We need to hold the wound.
There you have it, perspective from one of the body cameras on one of the police officers on Tuesday afternoon when Keith Scott was shot and killed. Let's bring in my colleague Ed Lavandera. He is outside police headquarters in Charlotte. Ed, a few questions for you. First of all, correct me if I'm wrong, but we don't know what officer that body camera video is from. But we do know it's not from Officer Vincent, who shot and killed Mr. Scott, correct?
Correct. We only know the name of Officer Brentley Vincent, who was, as you mentioned, the officer that fired the deadly shots. We don't know the names of any of the other officers. We do know that Officer Vincent was part of the tactical unit, and we are told by a city official that as of now, tactical unit officers here with the Charlotte Police Department don't wear body camera. They're usually in plain clothes, and because of that, apparently they do not wear those body camera footages. But the one thing that I think really bears explanation here real quick is why there is no audio at the top of that body camera. As you mentioned, it takes about 23 seconds or so for that audio to kick in. As soon as we saw that video, we started asking questions about that just to clarify why there wasn't any audio. That we've been told by a spokesperson for the city manager that the reason you do not hear audio for the first 20 seconds or so of that body camera footage is that the way these cameras work is that once the officer turns on the camera, engages the camera, that it instantly starts recording video, but that it takes, there's about 20 seconds of pre-roll for the audio to kick in. And that is the explanation that we've been told as to why it took a while for the audio to kick in on that body camera footage, that this is the way these cameras work. We asked repeatedly just to make sure that the portions that we have, other than being edited and condensed down to the length that has been released today, the city official insists and that none of what we have seen has been edited or altered in any kind of way. Poppy?
Okay, that's a very important point, Ed. So the police department is saying, look, this is the video in its raw form as we have it. Nothing has been altered. Nothing has been cut short even, Ed?
What has been cut down to the, I don't know offhand, I haven't had a chance to time out the two different videos, how much video we have. Those videos have been condensed on the front ends and the back ends clearly, but beyond the portions that we do have contained inside what we are seeing have not been altered in any way. That's why we were clearly wanting to ask about why it took a while for the audio to kick in on the body camera footage. When we first saw it, thought it might be a little strange and that it would be something that many people would have quick questions about as they started kind of processing what they're seeing. So this is coming from a spokesperson for the city manager here in Charlotte. We have reached out to spokespeople and public information officers with the Charlotte Police Department just to double check that with them, that's how these cameras work. We have not heard back from them. We'll keep trying, but that is the explanation we've been able to kind of quickly gather here for you as people are starting to see this video for the first time.
Ed, thank you very much for the reporting. Let's bring back my panel. Cheryl Dorsey back with me, Cedric Alexander, Paul Kellen, and Laura Coates. Paul Kellen, to you, we were speaking before the break, and now we've seen the video, the second video, the body camera video, and the police chief did say that no single piece of evidence that proves all the complexities of this case is available. There's a lot, Paul Kellen, that you cannot see, even from this vantage point.
There's an awful lot, and it's one of the reasons you have to wait before reaching a definitive conclusion about any of these cases. But, the point I want to make is that there's no question that law enforcement has a credibility problem with African Americans throughout the United States. There are constant complaints about disrespect and being expressed by law enforcement in their treatment of Black Americans on a day-to-day basis. But the criminal justice system decides these cases on a case-by-case basis. And in the end, this case is going to come down to one fact. Was there a loaded firearm in the hand of Mr. Scott when the police were saying, drop the weapon, drop the weapon? Because if there was, and there have been reports that a loaded firearm has been recovered from the scene and that it already has been linked to Mr. Scott, you're left with a situation where there is no grand jury and there is no prosecutor in America who will indict or charge this police officer with a crime. And the reason is that even if the weapon was down and not pointed at the officer, it can be raised to a shooting position in a matter of less than a second. So that shot could be fired. It could have taken down a police officer, but it also could have taken down a civilian who might have been in the area. And for that reason, the police will be able to articulate a very good self-defense theory here.
And Paul Kellen, let me read for our viewers again, if you're just joining us, part of that statement that did come, to your point, from the Charlotte Police Department. They say that a lab analysis conducted of the gun crime scene investigators recovered at the scene revealed the presence of Mr. Scott's DNA and his fingerprints on the gun. It was also determined that the gun Mr. Scott possessed was loaded at the time of his encounter with officers. Cedric Alexander, to you. Paul Kellen is saying, look, the legal line is clear here. You will not get a grand jury to indict if he had a loaded gun in his hand, regardless of whether it was pointed to officers or not. And you say to that?
I say that Paul Kellen articulated very clearly, based on the law, pretty much in all 50 states, that is exactly what the issue is going to be. We have a bigger problem here again. Is there something maybe we can learn from this? But the problem is, quite frankly, pointedly, there's a distrust issue in this country between police and community. And no matter what had occurred out there that day, that police department, any police department, is going to come up under this type of scrutiny. So we have a lot of work yet to do. And I think the best thing we can do in this case is allow for all of this information to come together and during an investigation so that we can clearly see exactly what happens at the end of it. But all we're going to see as we show these videos is piecemeals of what occurred. If you go back to the first video that we received, the dash cam video, Poppy, as you're watching Mr. Scott step backwards, because that's where we all are pretty much focused, look and see what the other two officers are doing. They, at that point, see themselves away from their concealment. And you can see it in their body language, which means that they, at that point, were exposed. So there's a lot of detail in this video and in these pictures that are going to have to be investigated, going to have to be questioned, is going to have to be characterized in a way that paints a true picture of what occurred in its entirety. And that's going to take some time.
Cheryl Dorsey, to you. The question was brought up in the Scott family press conference just now from one of their attorneys about, is more training needed? is more training needed when you're dealing with someone who, as his wife said, has a traumatic brain injury. When you look at this from through the lens of your career with the LAPD, what's your assessment of that, if more training is needed for situations like this?
Well, certainly that's an issue, because we hear that both in this case and in the case of Terrence Crutcher, he also had some type of impairment, some kind of a disability. But again, as a patrol sergeant, as a uniformed supervisor, I am concerned about the tactics and the actions of the officers that led up to this encounter. Because if you are my officers and you are on a stakeout and you see somebody sitting in a car waving a gun around, smoking a joint, and you make a decision to pull off of that stakeout and not contact me and make me aware of what's going on, and then you're leaving the situation, putting on a vest, going back and confronting this person leads to a deadly force shooting, it's a problem, because you were there for something else, and now you've involved and engaged in something completely unrelated, and it's caused the death of someone that probably did not have to happen. They were there for a stakeout. They left their post. I want to know why, and they didn't get a supervisor. Makes no sense to me.
Cheryl, thank you so much. My whole panel, thank you. I want you all to stand by. Obviously, big breaking news here on CNN. You've now seen for the first time the dash cam video and camera from the shooting of Mr. Scott on this